Sahil, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Welcome to the Priestess Perspective. Sahil, if you guys don't know, is a New York Times bestselling author of The 5 Types of Wealth. His book has literally changed my life. It is so incredible. I am so grateful that you're on the podcast because your book actually found me at such a critical time in my life where I felt like I had accomplished everything and yet I felt so empty. And I remember looking at my life and being like, I had all these finish lines in mind. I had these races that I was going down and I'd crossed the finish line on everything and so fast too. And I realized I was looking at my life and I was like, I feel like this arrival fallacy that you talk about in the book. And I'm curious for you, what was that moment where you seemingly arrived, but you felt like you weren't actually there?
I think that it is very similar to your story. There's this movie that I absolutely loved as a kid called Cool Runnings. It's it's kind of silly Disney movie, like Jamaican bobsled team going to the Olympics. And the coach is John Candy, the late John Candy. And he has this line that he says to one of the players. He says, "A gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not enough without it, you're never going to be enough with it. If you're not enough without it, you're never going to be enough with it." And that is really burned into my mind now, where I am in life, to just recognize that so much of our journey, we are conditioned to believe that our happiness, our contentment, our fulfillment is on the other side of something, some achievement, some accomplishment, some amount of money, some milestone, bonus, promotion, fancy thing, whatever it is. And over and over again, you find through achieving those things that if you are not enough without it, you are never going to be enough with it. It's not going to change how you feel about yourself if there's some issue internally or if you are not feeling fulfilled. Those things are not going to be able to bring you that. And so I experienced that through my own pursuit of what I would say are the traditional definitions of success. I come from a very academic household. My dad's a Harvard professor. My mom is Indian, so very academically oriented on both sides. And my whole household, my family, really defined our success. We measured ourselves on the basis of academic achievement, the standard definition. And from a young age, I had sort of ingrained in myself this idea that I was not very smart. My sister was the smart one, older sister, and that story that you start telling yourself from a young age about who you are and about what you're capable of, those stories have the power to really shape and create your reality. Humans are storytelling creatures. There's something called the narrative fallacy where, we seek to place things that we see in the world into the story or the narrative that we already believe. So if you tell yourself, like I did, that you are not smart or capable, you will find every single piece of evidence to confirm that belief, and you will ignore every single piece of evidence that would refute it. And I did that for many years. And so what happens when you do that is that you create this sort of insecurity, this internal void. And traditionally, as a society, the way that we seek to fix that internal problem that we've created is through external achievements. It's through money or through financial success, through bonuses, titles, fancy things. It's literally through LinkedIn flexing, right? You're trying to do, you take the job that you think will make other people impressed by you rather than the job that you actually want. And I did that. I went and got those things. I, got the fancy title. I made the money. All of these things that we are told are going to be the thing that makes us feel good. And I had a similar experience to you where I just I woke up every single time with that familiar sense of sort of dread. I haven't done enough. The next thing, resetting. There's always going to be someone that has achieved the thing that you haven't. And I made myself miserable. And all along the way, while I was achieving this one sort of area of life, all of these other areas of my life had started to suffer.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's how I felt. And I realized I think the worst part of it was how lonely I felt because I was I have all these things and I can't even complain boohoo, I'm a millionaire.
Champagne problems. It's such a real thing, by the way.
Real, yeah.
Yeah. I talked to, there's this, a friend of mine who, during the research for the book I spoke to, and he had sold his company for $200+ million. And he was talking about the fact that you don't have less problems. It's just the types of problems change. It goes from being about money problems, which are very real in the young age, to like purpose and meaning and identity problems that come after you make all this money. But you can't talk to people about those because no one wants to hear your problems, right? Like you can't go to the same friends that you talk to about money problems and say like, I don't know who I am.
Yeah.
I do not know who I am or what I should be doing. And I see it now in friends that I'm working with and trying to help navigate these ups and downs, especially the ones who achieved remarkable success at a young age. Athletes in particular see this where like you peak at age 25, you make an extraordinary amount of money, you're famous, you have all these things that you thought and you were conditioned to believe were going to solve all your problems. And then you wake up at 35 and you're retired and maybe you've made a bunch of money, but you have no idea who you are now that that thing has been taken away. Yeah. I think it was Dax Shepard that talked about this, how at the point in his life when he had achieved all the things he thought he wanted, it was the closest to not wanting to be alive that he had ever been. And he was saying how difficult it is to explain that to other people who have not experienced that, and how he now views it as a blessing because he realizes that all those things, they don't actually provide the the life force, the sustenance that we really need to thrive as human beings. But he only figured that out through experiencing it in the really bad and visceral way that he did.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting thing is I don't think you realize it until you get to that point. And everyone says like, oh, like money doesn't buy happiness, but it does for a lot. Like we were talking about that. You were talking about this yesterday. Money does buy happiness in the beginning stages of life. Like it directly correlated to so much happiness for me until it got to a point where I was like, okay, now that I've achieved like stability and I'm not surviving anymore, why do I need to wake up tomorrow? Like what is fueling life for me? And that's why I love your book because it explores the other types of wealth. And I'm curious, like for you, what in this stage of your life or at the stage that you actually started writing this, what was like the type of wealth for you that like you felt was most important?
I mean, before I started writing it, my whole life was about money. Like I really thought that everything else was a distraction from this one thing, which was like make money, become really impressive to other people, have, fame, success, whatever that metric is. And I even at the time, I viewed children as being like a distraction from the thing that was important. It's so hard for me to even understand or imagine that now being a father and how much I care about my son. But that was really my mindset on life. And I don't know where I learned that or thought about it. I think it's like this cultural osmosis that you are conditioned from a young age. You're surrounded by people, especially if you go to these high achieving universities and take a job that's like that. You're surrounded by people who think that same way, who are measuring their entire life worth on the basis of this one number, right? Like your money, your net worth, whatever it might be. And when I actually reflect back on it now, it's so funny to me because functionally speaking, I did not get happier from the moment I could like afford a decent, nice apartment that I myself had paid for and rented. I didn't get happier from making just like more money over the like 5 or 6 years of my career after that. The like additional money beyond just being able to have this like nice apartment, that was like an enormous happiness boost. I was like, wow, this is incredible. This apartment's mine. I have my own bed. I like, there was like simple things like that. It was huge. And I could pay my bills and I could travel basically whenever I wanted. Yeah. I could stay in a hotel. I could like see my friends. Those were the things that really bought me happiness directly.
Yeah.
After that, there were like random things that I then convinced myself I wanted that actually didn't change my life in any way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think, what's it called? I think in the beginning, like once I got to the point where I was like, I can afford to like travel at any point that I want. Like, and honestly, for me, I feel like the wealthiest I've ever felt in my life is actually right now in the time that I'm kind of sacrificing making money in pursuit of like time freedom more so, right? And that's something you talk about in the book. And something that was so life-changing for me was when you talk about being a time billionaire.
Yeah, I ask young people this question all the time, whether you would trade lives with Warren Buffett, right? He's worth $130 billion. He has access to anyone in the world. He like reads and learns for a living. He flies around on a Boeing business jet. He can basically stay anywhere and do anything that he wants. But you wouldn't trade lives with him simply because he's 95 years old, right? You would never agree to trade the amount of money that he has for the amount of time that he has. And on the flip side, he would give anything to be in your shoes. He would give up every single dollar to have the amount of time that you have left. So you acknowledge with this very simple question that your time has quite literally incalculable value. But on a daily basis, are you really relating to yourself that way? Are you recognizing that you are a time billionaire? You have billions of seconds left in your life. A billion seconds is like 30 years. So when you're 20 years old, you have a little over 2 billion seconds left on average. When you're 50, you have about 1 billion seconds left. Your time is your most precious asset. On a daily basis, that is the thing we really need to be thinking about how we allocate. We spend all this time and energy thinking about, how do I invest my money? Like, where am I going to allocate my money into these different investments to get the best return? Never thinking about how we're allocating our time. And that is the one asset that we cannot get back. We can't buy more of it at the end of the day.
Yes. And I love in the book that you talk about how you moved closer to your family. And you actually wrote on Instagram somewhere, you were like, one of the best, I think you said, where was it, like, nothing will improve your quality of life more than proximity to the people you love. It's worth more than any job will ever pay you. That concept was my New Year's resolution of like, I am willing to trade any, like, not any necessarily opportunity, like work-wise, but like most, like I'm just willing to put friendship and the people that I love above all else. Like when you gave me your book and when I started reading it and I was going through this era where I felt so lonely and I was like, what is the meaning of life? Like I was literally sitting reading Viktor Frankl and I was like, I don't know the meaning of anything. And I was like, truly what gives me happiness and what gives me life is just being with people. And so if that means like I could take like a week off work and just like go to New York or go, see my friends in Europe or whatever, like I'm just going to go do it, And a lot of my friends right now, they're, looking for job opportunities. They're trying to find the best job, the highest paying job that they could find. And it's like, really at the end of the day, when I look back on life, I feel like what I'll remember is the people that I spent it with. And so how have you like implemented, or like what strategies do you have to implement that in your life and like make sure you're taking advantage of it?
Get on the plane.
Get on the plane.
Just as like a single sentence mantra for life, I really think that captures it. It's like you never regret those decisions to spend time with people that you care about. If it's people that you don't care about, totally different story. But the people that you really care about, like the people that are truly going to be there for you, your roots, if you will, in your life, get on the plane. Like if that friend is having like, a special occasion, a dinner, they're getting engaged, these things, it's so easy in our own lives to say like, oh, well, it's going to be tiring for me to go and do this thing. I have, this work thing, or I have this meeting, I'd have to do this remotely, I'd have to do this thing. No one is going to remember that meeting and like how you showed up in that meeting. And I don't mean to say that it doesn't matter at all, but like very few of these things that we build up in our minds as being so important actually matter. No one remembers that little like piece of work that you did, but your friend will really remember you being there or not in these moments, and you will really remember it. Those are the things that provide this durable, real value and life to your life. And I think that like, I think about this one episode from my own journey. This dear, dear friend of mine from college, one of my roommates, his mother passed away from ALS shortly after we got done in school. He was playing professional baseball and I was working, and he had come home for his mom's funeral. And I went to the funeral, and after the funeral, I was going to go back to the office to work. And so I left and I was driving back, and he had said to me like, hey, I'm going back to my house. Like, I know you have to go back to work. Gave me a hug, and I drove back. And I got back to my office. I pulled into the parking lot, and I was about to get out of the car and go up into the office and work. And I was like, what the hell am I doing here? And I turned around out of the parking lot, drove out, and drove like an hour back to his house. I had driven an hour back to work, turned around and drove an hour back to his house. And I walked in, and I just sat there with him for a few hours. We didn't even really talk. I don't remember a single thing we said. But I was there, and I cannot tell you how much that meant to me to be able to do that in that moment. And I can't speak for him, but I know what it meant to him, that I just was there, that I was just present in that moment. I can't tell you what I was possibly going to work on that day that would have mattered, right? Like I was probably going to send some bullshit emails. I was going to like make myself feel important, do some nonsense, versus being there in those moments. Obviously, that's an extreme example given what had happened in his life. But like, Those are the trade-offs that we're constantly making, and we're choosing the wrong thing in the vast majority of cases, both literally and scientifically. Scientifically, we know that relationships are the thing that is going to create the healthy, happy life that we want. That is just true, definitively. Relationships are the single greatest predictor of your happiness and health as you age. And yet, we are not investing in them on a daily basis. They are the first thing that fall by the wayside when we get busy. Like, we get busy and we say, like, oh, I can't text that person to let them know I care about them. I can't do the phone call. I can't get on the plane to go and see this person. I can't call my mom in the 5 minutes that I have, between these meetings. All of those things that are really going to be what contribute to the good life we're trying to build, we allow to slip as soon as we get busy with whatever nonsense is urgent in our life.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like book the flight has definitely been like my mantra lately, because it's just like, you just gotta go. You just gotta go.
And you never regret it.
You never regret it.
I really do think that life gets a lot better when you start doing things that you know you never regret. Like, make a list of the things that you never regret doing, and then spend more time doing those things. It's like a simple way to improve your life. I know the things that I never regret doing. I never regret going for walks. I never regret spending time with people that I care about. I never regret working out. I never regret working on like meaningful creative projects that I really care about. These are pretty simple things. If I spend more time on those things that I never regret doing, my life will get better.
Yes. Amen. Yeah. And in the book you talk about how like to like look at your calendar and like color code it based on what gives you energy, which as an ADHD girl, I feel like that was so life-changing, because I was like, okay, so being with people actually fuels the other types of wealth for me, it like, and so I'm curious if there's like any specific thing that you feel fuels other types of wealth for you.
Yeah, the energy one is huge.
Yeah.
You show up in the world better when you are leaning into things that create energy. You show up for the negative things in your life better when you are leaning into the good things. You're not ever going to eliminate these things that sort of drain energy from your life. It's never going to be the case that you have a perfect set of days where there's not a single thing that drained your energy. That's mostly a pipe dream. But when you have mostly green on your calendar, mostly things that create energy, you feel better for the things that are going to drain it. And you actually show up better for those things. You're able to kind of like mark your responsibility and do that thing better. That has been a big unlock for me, is just to create an awareness of the types of activities that are creating versus draining energy, plus the types of people, so that you can lean into those relationships and lean away from the ones that are making me feel like I need to take a shower after spending time with this person. Like, why am I spending time with this person anymore? Allowing yourself to let go of those things or those people is a big unlock for your life. I mean, you recognize that it's very easy when you're thinking about growth, you're thinking about your own progress in life, to focus on the things you need to do, the things that I need to act on, the actions that I need to take. Much harder to think about the things that I need to not do, my like to-do list, the things that I need to let go of, the things that I need to remove. Because all of us, like if you imagine your own life and journey as kind of a boat, you have your engine, which is going to drive you forward, and then you have this anchor that's sitting in the ground underneath you. And until you cut the line from that anchor, whatever it is, the behaviors, mindsets, actions, people, you're never going to be able to go forward at full speed. You're not going to be operating on full power. You're going to be having this drag behind you. Identifying what those things are and cutting the line from those things systematically is a tried and true way to accelerate your own progress.
Absolutely. And I feel like on the note of like people, one of the things you talk about in the book that was like really life-changing for me was you were like, imagine yourself at your funeral and you would be dead, but like who would be sitting at the front row of your funeral, and are you investing time into those people? And I know you've spoken about like your darkest hour friends, and I'm curious, like, how do you know who those people are, and like how do you invest the right amount of time into those people, like making sure you're still investing into everything else?
So here's the harsh truth. Most of your friends aren't really your friends. They are just along for the ride when it's fun, convenient, or valuable, and they'll be gone when it's none of those things. Your real friends are the ones who are there for you when you have nothing to offer in return. When you're down and out, when your company goes under, when you go bankrupt, when you're struggling with something, when you're in the darkness, when you're crawling through the mud. Your real friends show up for you in those moments. Those are your darkest hour friends. Find them, cherish them, and be one to someone else. We all go through those periods of darkness in our life. Hopefully it's a short period, but sometimes it's a long one. You know who the people are that don't disappear when you experience those moments. You know who the ones are that do disappear. Allow people's actions in those moments to stick with you so that you remember who those people are. Who were the seasonal ones that got out of town as soon as it got cold and windy, and who were the ones that were there during those winter months. I think that the way that we find those people is by being that person to someone else. So often in life, we are seeking things in the world that we are not embodying ourselves. And that is a big struggle that I think we all need to deal with. And we need to come to terms with that. Sometimes we need to hold ourselves to the fire. Like, I have a lot of friends. I'm 34. I have a lot of friends around my age who are dating. They're trying to find their life partner. And I have one friend in particular who, he has this long list of things that he wants to find in another person. Really, literally a long list that he's written down. And I look at it and I'm sitting there with him and I'm like, dude, you don't embody a single one of these things. You're talking about how you want to find someone trusting. You're not trusting. How are you going to find a person that's trusting? You're right. I had a very funny incident with him where he had just broken up with this girl, and he was like, yeah, she was going through my phone, and she shouldn't have been going through my phone. I don't know why she was doing that. She should just trust me. And I was like, well, is there anything on your phone? And he was like, of course there was something on my phone, but that's not the point. And I was just like, man, what? We are missing the plot, losing the plot on all of these things, that what you hope to find in the world, you need to put out into the world. Mario Quintana wrote, don't waste your time chasing butterflies. Mend your garden and the butterflies will come. Mend your garden and the butterflies will come. That is about embodying the things that you want to find in the world, and those things come to you. Call that manifestation, call that whatever you want. The energy that you put out into the world, you receive reciprocally in return.
Actually, speaking of manifesting, do you manifest, or how do you use your mindset? I know in the book you talk about Carol Dweck, growth mindset, which I'm such a fan as an education major, but how do you use because you're very practical. I'm super woo woo. How do you use your mindset to benefit you in life?
I think there's two sides to this. I'm sort of two minds when it comes to manifestation. There is the woo-woo side of me, if you will, to use your lingo, that says, I'm going to speak these things into reality. And when I signed this book deal, I was like, I'm going to write a New York Times bestselling book. And I wrote it on a little card. The day that I signed the book deal, I wrote New York Times bestseller. And I was like, I'm going to make that happen. It was a little it was like a to-do box. And it was write a great book, write a New York Times bestseller. Those were the two things that I was going to make happen in the world. It was going to take 3 years, whatever it was going to take, but I'm going to make this happen. And I'm going to speak it into reality. Then there's the side of me that's very practical. And the side of me that's practical says, well, ultimately, manifestation could just be a result of confirmation bias, that I am going to create in the world the things that I already believe. I'm going to find evidence that is going to confirm these beliefs that I already have about myself. So the manifestation side of I believe I am a New York Times bestselling author, I'm going to go out and make that I'm going to go create the evidence that is going to go and confirm that. And either way, it works.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter whether I'm taking it from energy I'm putting out into the world, or if I'm taking it from a purely practical perspective to say that I'm going to go and create the thing and it's going to be through my actions. Either way, it works. And so I don't really care how it works. I'm just going to go out and do it. I would say that now I just have an abundance of evidence that I am the type of person who keeps promises to myself. And if there is one thing that I could say to anybody out there to try to break free of whatever you are struggling with in life, it is keep one tiny promise to yourself today, whatever that is, whether it's wake up at the time you said, go to the gym, do the one tiny thing. That has ripple effects that you will never believe. Because once you convince yourself that you are the type of person who keeps promises to yourself, you recognize that confidence is built, not born. And that you are capable of doing enormous things. It all starts from something small, but you are capable of doing anything. That confidence can create any reality that you can possibly imagine. And I really believe that for people. I'm not just saying that like, oh, you can do whatever you set your mind to. I really believe that is possible if you are willing to do the work and you are willing to show up every single day and keep those promises to yourself. And that is extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah.
People say they're willing to do the work for these things, and they're not. They'll say like, oh yeah, I want to, build this business. I want to create this brand. And the first time it gets hard, they're gone. The second time it gets hard, they're definitely gone. It's very hard to continue showing up when the rewards are uncertain in life. The person who can tolerate the most uncertainty is the person who will eventually win. Tolerance for uncertainty is probably the single most important trait in life. And so I just think that having a grounding and a belief and an evidence base that you are the type of person who continues to show up, who keeps promises to yourself, that makes you invincible.
Yes, it's like your self-concept. You have to convince, and that's how I manifest. I'm like, okay, well, if I want to create this, how do I embody the identity of the person who already has it? Like, how am I going to be showing up every day and writing the book, or am I going to be like sleeping, in every morning? So, yeah, it's huge. That's such a big.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I have always found that the ability to bring the after into the before is like a unique capacity that certain people have and certain people need to develop. Like the ability to say, I know this is kind of going to suck in whatever way, but I know how it's going to feel when I'm done. I know how it's going to feel when I'm sort of halfway into this. The beginning is going to be really hard. Like, no one likes state changes, right? No one likes going from being in bed to having their shoes on, starting a run. No one likes going from being in bed to being in a cold plunge. Like, no one likes going from being, hanging out watching TV to sitting and writing their book. The state change is what's the problem to be conquered. Once you're doing the thing, it's actually quite easy. Then you start to feel good. You get a little bit of momentum. You're like, oh, I'm running, or I'm in the cold plunge, or I'm doing the writing, the thing I said I was going to do. The state change is the hard part. So if you can overcome that, if you can rewire yourself to say like, well, I'm just going to do it really quick, get through the state change, I have found that to be really powerful. When I wake up in the morning and I have that sensation of like no motivation to go on a run or do whatever the thing is I say, what my rewiring of my brain is I'm going to get to that thing as fast as possible. I'm just going to like put on my shoes really quickly and get outside. Because once I'm outside, super easy. Now I'm not going to go back in after I'm outside. It's the same thing with waking up in the morning. Like a simple thing that I did was I put my alarm clock in the bathroom. And so my phone goes off. I have to get out of bed to go turn it off. I have to go through the state change of being from in bed to in the bathroom in order to turn my alarm off. I'm not going to get back into bed once I do that. I might press the snooze button if it's right next to my bed, but I won't once I create the state change. So rewiring yourself to sort of just like hammer through those state changes in whatever way can make a huge difference in your ability to actually get through those sort of friction points.
Yes. Because I see you're always on a run, you're always in a cold plunge, and I'm like, damn. But it's really like, I mean, if I could tell the listeners, like the one thing that I think has changed my life the most as well is like keeping those promises to yourself. It created such confidence and belief in myself that like, if I say this is happening, it's gonna happen. And constantly like, creating that confirmation bias of like, the universe is actually like, when I put in the work, it happens, eventually. So,
and it sounds crazy to other people, by the way. Like,
right.
I mean, everyone always asks me like, "Oh, where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Or like, what's your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan? My honest answer is I have absolutely no idea, and that's how I like it.
Yeah.
Because 5 years ago, I was working in finance. I hadn't written a single thing.
Wow.
I hadn't written a newsletter. Really? I hadn't written on Twitter. I had no Twitter account. I hadn't even thought about writing a book. It literally was not even on my mind. And so if you had asked me at the time, 5 years from now, where are you going to be? I could have written out 100 scenarios of my future. Not a single one of them would have been sitting here with you talking about my book, right? Not a single one out of the 100. And so now what I recognize is like, it would have sounded crazy if at the time I had gone to someone and said like, well, I'm going to write a New York Times bestselling book. Right. We can go and create the craziest realities. Like, this is your timeline. You are living in your own simulation, however you want to think about it, and you can go and shape it in the most dramatic, absurd ways. And when you say those things, especially at the outset, you're going to get a bunch of weird looks, right? Like the number of people that when I started writing in 2020 that were like making fun of me or belittling me in some way or saying like, oh, you're doing this little newsletter, like, you know, the word little, like the little derogatory comments that people make, crazy. And you better damn well believe that I sent all those people a copy of the book once it came out. You know, like I'm petty like that for sure. But it's so, I mean, it is, your entire life will change when you realize that you are capable of creating whatever future it is that you want, as long as you are willing to do the work necessary and be patient enough to allow those things to compound.
How did you, so you were working in finance and then one day you just like decided you wanted to start, like what was that transition point?
Yeah, I mean, I started writing because I was bored and stuck at home. It was COVID hit. I wasn't commuting into the office. I wasn't traveling 3-4 days a week. And I always had liked writing when I was like in high school and college. And I started originally posting on Twitter. I got some of the dopamine hit of like it was working. I was basically writing posts like explaining finance and business concepts in simple terms. And I was good at it. And I put a lot of effort and energy into it. So people were sharing it. It was growing. And there was never any intention I was going to leave my job. Like I had a very lucrative job. People thought I was impressive. There was all these things. And I would say at some point along the way, I recognized that, man, I had a lot of energy for this thing that I was doing. Yeah. I love writing. But I had never thought that there was a business there, that I would write a book or something like that. And it got to the point where I realized that the path that I was on working in finance was this good path that wasn't really for me. The worst thing in the world is not being on a bad path.
Amen.
The worst thing in the world is being on a good path that isn't yours. Bad path screams at you every single day that you need to make a change. You need to get off. You need to make the shift because it's burning. It's killing you. The good path that isn't yours is a lot more challenging because there are so many forces around you that are telling you to stay on that, to endure it because you can pay your bills, because you have a mortgage, because you have responsibilities, because you're sounding impressive to others, because you have high status. Whatever these things are, there are these forces that keep you on that. And it is so hard to convince yourself to step off of that path. And so I needed a jarring moment to do that. That jarring moment for me was this recognition that the amount of moments that I had left with my parents was dwindling. And if not for that, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I mean, I would be continuing to have done the thing that I had been doing. My life would look very different, and I would be living the, you know, sort of uniquely miserable existence of the person who has these unfulfilled promises, you know, the road not taken in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I can't even express, like, that was such a moment for me as well. Like, I call it the golden handcuffs. It's like, it feels good. It's just good enough. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with this. Like, a lot of my friends right now are going through this where they're like at a job they really like, but they don't love. They're in a city that feels comfortable. They know enough people. It feels like, how do you make the transition from one state to the next?
Yeah, this is a real challenge because there are a lot of things that are distractions masquerading as good opportunities. You know, you're like, when you're young, you have no opportunities. And all of a sudden you start having a little bit of success and then you have all these opportunities. And, you know, it's sort of like, it's a silly analog, but like when you're, like I remember when I was in high school and like I didn't have a girlfriend and no girl would talk to me or think I was interesting in any way. And then all of a sudden I had a girlfriend who is now my wife, by the way. And every girl thought I was like amazing and wanted to talk to me now that I had a girlfriend, right? Like all of a sudden, you achieve some success or some win in life financially or in whatever way, relationships. And now all of a sudden, all the opportunities in the world are coming your way. And what you have is this situation where you have a ton of distractions that are masquerading as these good opportunities. And if you start grabbing at all of these, obviously in a relationship, it's a bad idea, but in your life and in your financial future and in your career, you grab at all these little opportunities, you miss out on the much bigger, more important, blindingly obvious thing because you don't have the headspace to take it on. I think that for most people, what they really need to tune into is this energy question. If in your 20s you can figure out and create a model in your mind for the types of activities that are really going to create energy in your life, you will be able to thrive in your 30s and beyond. If you do not establish that understanding of yourself in your 20s, you'll be struggling because you'll be just like floating around to whatever pays you the most. And the truth is that your outcomes in life are going to follow your energy. Like, I could have made good money doing the path that I was on. It wasn't energy creating for me. It just happened to be a lucrative path. I will make much more money doing the thing I am doing now, even though it makes no sense to make money on the path I'm on, because I really freaking care about it. Like, I just have so much energy for this thing that comes across in the work that I put out into the world. And it's clear that I could be an N of 1 in the thing that I'm doing now versus an N of 100,000 in the thing I was doing on the other side. So for anyone out there, like, to me, it is all about just slowly and steadily develop a better understanding of your energy in life. Like, what are the things, the people, the types of activities that are really making you feel that pull and that interest, lighting you up in that way, and start leaning into those things. That doesn't necessarily need to be this enormous shift in your life. It could be like a slightly different take on your current role. It could be a big shift, but your outcomes in life will follow your energy. So figure out your energy as fast as possible.
I'm so in agreement. Like, I have ADHD. So for me, it's like if I'm hyper fixated on something, I just go all in because it just like fuels life in me. I actually have an inability to do something that doesn't give me energy. So, speaking of being in your 20s, like, what advice, I guess, like, now that you're in your 30s, like, what have you noticed the most in terms of like types of wealth as well? Like, what has shifted the most in what you value in life, or like what advice would you give to your like 24-year-old self?
So much. I would say the first piece of advice I would give is always take yourself seriously. There's this bad advice that floats around on the internet to not take yourself so seriously in life. My belief is that the way the world treats you is a simple reflection of the way you treat yourself. If you do not take yourself seriously, you should not expect other people to take you seriously. When I say take yourself seriously, what I mean is treat yourself the way you want other people to treat you. Stand up tall, like walk with confidence, speak with intention, be present, listen closely, take care of your mind and body. These are simple things that we can do that impact the way that the world treats us and sees us. And when you take care of those basics in your own life, it is very hard to lose over long periods of time. They're simple, they're available to basically anybody, and you can go and do that. I wish I had known that from a younger age and just really been deliberate about it from the get-go. The second one is to stop assuming that there is always going to be more time. Like, later is another word for never. There were so many things that I glazed by because I assumed there would be more of them. Even moments like this, like you're sitting here with someone, you're having a conversation. It's so easy to be in your own head and to be somewhere else. You are here physically, but mentally you're like thinking about the podcast you have to do next week, or the work you have to do tomorrow morning, or, oh, I didn't sleep enough, or here's my flight, all of these a million things. And you do that with this implicit assumption that they're going to be later. We're going to hang out later. We're going to spend more time. Maybe we're going to get a meal next time. I may never see you again, right? Like, anything can happen. And so time is going to happen one way or another. You can't dictate that. You can dictate how you show up in those moments that you are going to exist in. The presence that you are going to bring to these different moments. You are always in control of that presence. And that idea that there will always be some later is just definitively incorrect. At some point, there's going to be a last time that you did these things. And you never realized that it was the last time. You might think that you're going to spend more time with your sibling or with your friend or with your, with your parent, and something happens and life reminds you that none of that is guaranteed. That is not to be morbid. It is to just recognize, again, that time is the one thing that you can't get back. Time is the most precious thing. So to be present in those moments, that is your act of defiance in a world that wants you to be in a million places at once. The act of defiance, the ultimate act of defiance, is to be truly present in these moments with the people that you care about.
Do you feel like you've become more present as you've gotten older?
Oh, enormously so.
Really?
Part of that is because I'm much better at just saying no to all of the things and the people and the influences that I don't care for in my life. I used to spend time with people or in groups or going to things that I didn't actually want to be at. So my energy was pulling me elsewhere because I didn't really want to be there.
Yeah.
Now, for the most part, maybe 80 or 90% of my time, when I commit to something, when I'm doing it, it's because I really want to be there. Like I would not have said yes to doing this podcast and to sitting here with you if I didn't really want to have a conversation with you selfishly.
Yeah.
Right? Like podcasting is a selfish act at the end of the day. Like you get to have a conversation with someone that hopefully you actually want to have a conversation with, and other people get to benefit from that, hopefully, and learn from it, and you share it. But not saying yes to the thing unless you really want to be there in that moment, and you're really saying no to everything else that you could be doing in that present. That has had a huge impact. It means I say yes to a lot fewer things, but I'm really going to be present in those moments. Does that mean that I'm perfect? Absolutely not. I constantly find myself, I'll be like with my son, he wants to play, and I'm like, oh, some work thing is stressing me out, pulling me in a different direction. But I am much better at triggering my awareness in those moments to pull myself back. I used to spiral. Anyway, I would just be gone, right? You spend a whole evening with someone and not really be there with them at all. I'm much better now at recognizing when that is happening and pulling myself back. And, if I think about it broadly, I really think about all of life being about awareness and then action. The gap between awareness and action is a big issue for a lot of people. Like you might be aware of something, but if you're not acting on that thing right then it's kind of useless that you were aware of it. Being aware of something in the abstract is not as important as being aware of it in the moment when it matters, at the testing point. And so what I try to do is just make sure that awareness is top of mind so that I can pull myself back into that present moment, and cast aside whatever it is that is pulling me away.
Mm-hmm. This is so fascinating. I'm loving this conversation. I want to talk also about, because you mentioned your son, like, first of all, do you have tips for anyone watching for like how to find the one? Like, I feel like in today's day and age, and like obviously reading your book, I'm like, okay, so time is important. Who you spend the most amount, you're going to spend the most amount of time with your partner. So like, how do you know that how did you know that you found the one?
There's two things I'll say here. Before I got married, my mom asked me how I knew that Elizabeth, my wife, was the one. And what I told her was that it was because I loved doing nothing with her. What I meant by that was I had come to this realization that most of life is just sitting on the couch, sitting around, watching shows, spending time with your kids, and doing nothing. But we create this impression that life is about these glamorous, perfect moments, that like life is the honeymoon trips and the Instagram perfect filters and these elaborate, glamorous things. When the truth is that most of life is those simple moments, the little things. So when you find someone that you love doing nothing with, you have found your person. The second thing I'll say here is I have changed my mind on this idea that the person you choose to marry or partner with in life is the single most important decision that you ever make. I've said that, I've written that. I have partially changed my mind on it because what I now believe is that love is a choice that you make on a daily basis to show up in some way over and over and over again. You do not make a right or wrong decision about the person that you partner with, because that is one decision in tens of thousands that you make thereafter that make that a good or a bad partnership. Like you could marry the perfect person, but if you then show up like a jerk and you're not present every day after that, it will not work out. I can guarantee it. You could marry someone that maybe doesn't seem like a great fit, but if you show up with intention and you are really putting effort into growing that love after the fact, it may work out spectacularly well. So it is not about a single decision you make. It is about the thousands of decisions that follow the one. And that is a really empowering idea, because it is a recognition of your own agency in that journey, that you could have made the wrong decision, but make it right through the actions that you took after the fact. And that is a broader mental model for life, to recognize that you don't need to overthink every single thing on your journey. If you think that this is the one most important decision I'm ever going to make, gosh, now I am really going to overthink this every single relationship. And it's the same for business, right? Like, you go talk to the most successful business people in the world. They don't obsess over the single decision. They obsess over the actions that follow it. They make a decision, then they make it right with the actions that follow it. It's the same for your relationships. If you find someone that you like, just have this connection with, there's the shared values, there's all of these things that feel right, you are going to either make that work or not work on the basis of how you show up every single day after it. You are in control of that. It could have been the wrong decision objectively on paper, but you can make it the right decision through the actions that follow, assuming the other person is willing to show up in that same way. That is really now how I think about it. It is much more about growing than falling. We obsess over the falling in love phase. Yeah. That's social media. That's, again, the Instagram pictures, all of the perfect manicured moments, when really life is about growing in love. It is about the shared struggle, the hard conversations, the crawling through the mud with the person. That is where you build these bonds that last for a long time. And that only comes through a desire to show up in those thousands of tiny daily decisions that follow the first one.
I love that you explained it that way, because I do view business that way, where I'm like, I'll just go. Like, the second I have an idea, I'm like, I'll just go and I'll figure it out along the way. And like, I trust myself enough to make it work. But for some reason, yeah, with dating, I think it's like, I'm very much like, I have to pick the right person. And maybe that's like society. Do you find that business ideas and principles actually like, are in alignment with like, romantic principles that you have, or vice versa?
I really try to not, I don't sort of like have ideas, frameworks, or mental models that I think apply to only one area of life. I am very much, you can see it in the way that I speak about these things, like I have these broad lenses through which I view the world. And I think they apply to everything. Like I will not be able to unsee these certain ideas when I look around me. I'm like, oh my God, that applies to relationships. It applies to everything. Like delayed gratification. I'm like, this applies to everything that I do. Yeah. Every single thing you want in life is on the other side of something that sucks. Right? Like that could be in your body. It's 100 hard workouts and bland meals. That could be in your business. It's 100 hours of focused work. That could be in your relationships. It's 100 hard conversations. All applies in the exact same way. I have to be willing to endure meaningful struggle to get to the thing that I want on the other side. If I'm not willing to, if I'm chasing novelty, if I'm pressing the eject button as soon as it gets hard, I'm never going to get to the good thing on the other side. That approach to saying like there are just fundamental truths about the world that, yes, the lens is slightly different, how it applies to these different areas, but they are fundamental truths. That has really helped me sort of navigate and make sense of situations across different areas of life.
Yeah. How has being a father like changed your life?
Oh God. How much time you got? I think that fundamentally until my son was born, I was effectively a selfish creature. I think that you love your partner. You would give anything for them. You would give your life for them, but there is nothing like the connection and love that you feel for your child. And it is just different. I mean, I spent the first 30 years of my life wondering what the meaning and purpose of all of this was. And then I held my son in my arms and I looked at him and it was staring right back at me. And I have felt that sensation more strongly than anything else in my entire journey. I have found that my joy and happiness is on like a completely different plane in life since he was born. It is different. Like the type of joy and happiness that you experience as a parent is very, very different than what you experience prior to that. Like I had all of the fun things, right? Like the big trips, the nights out, all of like those fun, crazy, euphoric moments of life. I've experienced all of those. There's nothing like those daily little moments of nothing that somehow bring you an unexplainable level of joy. I mean, like, this is a silly example, but I was sitting outside on our like deck table with my son the other day and he was looking at the moon and he was kind of like, he's 3 years old, but he was asking me questions about the moon, like how big is the moon? And I was just having a conversation with him. And I had this sensation of like, I'm having a conversation sort of with this thing that was brought into the world that's starting to have some level of consciousness about the world around him and understanding and putting these things together. I was just like, I had chills. Even now I'm like thinking about it. It's such a crazy thing. And I can't explain that in any way that makes sense other than that it has been the most profound change in my own life, in my own level of purpose and meaning, in my own clarity of what matters to me and what I want to build, and in the fact that I need to embody the things that I want him to learn.
Yeah.
I can't hope to teach him anything. I just have to go out and embody these things. And so I think that more men need to act that way, to be honest. Like there are all these guys that I know that are like, they say they care about being a dad and then they, cheat on their wives. And I'm like, well, you don't really care about, being a good dad if you're going to go do that, right? Like you're saying that, but you don't actually, because you're acting in a way that you clearly wouldn't want your son, hopefully, to act in that same way. And there's a lot of cognitive dissonance around these things to say like, I need to embody the way that I want my son to learn about the world. And that means that you make trade-offs in the way that you live and in the way, you aren't seeking instant gratification from all the things that you have access to in life. You pursue things differently and you live a different way. To pursue long-term meaning, you sacrifice certain short-term things. Kids are not really a vehicle for like short-term happiness in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of hard things about having kids. Ask any parent, especially any mother, a lot of really hard things. But long-term meaning and purpose and like texture to your life, there's nothing better in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I have like younger siblings, so I totally relate. I'm like, when they start asking you those questions, you're like, oh, okay. So like you're experiencing life for the first time and that's insane. What's it called? Yeah, I mean, how do you balance everything? Because like obviously you're so successful, but do you like put fatherhood above all else, or like how does that work?
Yeah, I think that I place my role as a provider for my wife and son as my highest order responsibility and purpose. That doesn't mean that I just spend all my time with my son, right? Like presence really matters, but I also need to provide and create the life that I want them to have, the security, the safety, to know that if I drop dead today, that they'll be fine. That, they're going to have a great life. And seeing my wife with my son the way that she is with him, the love that she has for him, which is impossible to comprehend. I mean, the only person in the world that loves him more than I do. To know as a man that you could drop dead and that your child would live an amazing life is like, to me, the absolute highest level of satisfaction. I can't imagine something that makes me feel more comfortable and happy than to know that like he would be surrounded by love, his grandparents, my wife, obviously, all of these forces in his life, that I could be gone and he would live a great life. I don't want that to happen. I want to be there and get to experience it. Don't get me wrong. But that is, a really profound thing to me. And that means that I have to do certain things, that I have to show up in certain ways, and that I need to explain to him why I'm doing those things that I'm doing, why it's important that I work and that I work hard on these things, and balance that against the desire to be present.
Wow, that made me tear up. Like, there's just not enough, I think, men in the world who think that way, to be honest. Or at least this is a limiting belief I'm working on. But I think it's beautiful that you would want to be that for your son and wife.
Yeah, I think that it's it doesn't fit into the traditional like definition of masculinity, and it certainly doesn't fit into this like modern version, which is not masculinity, that people are espousing as masculinity out there on social media, of what it means to be like an alpha. And I am perfectly comfortable living differently and just like being a pillar of a different way of living. Yeah. And I hope that people see that it is a more meaningful way, in my opinion, and that they get attracted to that idea and they show up in the world in that way, because I think that the world benefits immensely from having more strong dads who show up with vulnerability and love and strength in all of these different ways and sort of embrace this full spectrum of their character as people. I think they will raise better children. I think they will show up for their partners in a deeper and more meaningful way. And I think that the world benefits in an enormous way from that. But we need to win back that narrative, especially with young men, because I think there are a lot of lost young men out there that are chasing this version of success that is misguided and, kind of gross.
Yeah. It's like the financial wealth. Like that's all they're focused on, the car, the watch.
Yeah. And who are you trying to impress? Like, I always go back to this. Like, when you're like taking pictures in front of a private jet or like a car with a nice watch on social media, you're not impressing the people you think you're impressing.
Right.
You're impressing poor people. And like, that is just the truth, right? Like, no successful business person sees that picture of you and is like, damn, that's sick. You're really successful. That doesn't happen, right? Like, they think you are cringe and that you're weird or lame. The people that you are impressing are the people that don't have those things. And so recognizing that, you might not feel quite as attracted to this idea. Obviously, if your business model is selling to the people that don't have those things, you will still do it because that's a good business model for those people. But for me, I'm like, I can't think of something less attractive than me doing that. Like, if you ever saw me doing that, you would know I was far gone. Like, something wrong has happened in that guy's life. You got to go fix it. Because I want to be respected by people that I really, by these people that I really admire the way that they think about the world. And I'm not going to achieve that respect from those people by like flexing on random stuff. Especially random stuff that I can't actually afford, that I'm like renting in order to post it on social media. It's just like, you see now, like, you can rent a room that looks like a private jet, but it's not actually a private jet, so that you can take Instagram pictures on it. Like, wow, have we lost the plot on what we're trying to do in life? But yeah.
Yeah, I think in the book, maybe it's in the book, you talk about how, like, if no one saw that you bought the watch, like, would you still buy it, Yeah,
I call it the bot status test. You ask yourself before you buy something, would I still buy this thing if I couldn't tell anyone that I had it, or I couldn't show anyone that I had it? Would I still buy this thing? And oftentimes the answer is no. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy it. Maybe it still will bring you joy. Maybe you still care about it, like the handbag, the watch, the car, whatever the thing is. But it is a reminder that often in life, we are living for the benefit or pleasure of some random person that we don't even know. Right? Like, you have all these followers on Instagram, and you realize that you're like buying and spending money and taking action and guided by these people that you don't even know out there. You're like, well, I have to go do this fancy thing, go to this party, go on this trip because like I need the social media likes or these things. Like, I'm literally living for the benefit of all these other people. That seems crazy to me on the surface versus doing things that I really care about, that I really enjoy, that I really like authentically. Stepping away from that and recognizing that you actually don't need to live that way. No one's forcing you to do those things. You can define success in your own way and live your own life. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. To start like wrapping up, I guess I want to ask as well, like, obviously, you know, a lot of like ambitious people, ambitious men. Like, what do you think ambitious men want in a partner? Because a lot of my followers are women, and this is a question I get a lot.
What do ambitious men want in a partner? I think that ambitious men is a very broad thing. And I think that you're going to get all different types of values within that. I think that everybody that is ambitious wants to find in a partner someone that is ambitious about their own things. The idea that ambition has to be about career and financial wealth is a self-limiting belief. My wife, when we decided to have children, really wanted to focus on being a mom during this season of life while he is young and at home before he goes back to school. She was fast rising through the world of design. She was one of the heads of men design at Gap, doing really well and crushing this very competitive industry. She's extraordinarily talented. That same ambition that she applied to that, she now applies to being a mother and to showing up for him with extraordinary energy on a daily basis, energy that I could not ever hope to have on a daily basis. I'm like the most low energy person in the world compared to her and how she shows up. I see that as ambition in the exact same way that I did in the way she pursued her career. So I think there's this tendency to say like, well, do they want an ambitious career woman or an ambitious mother or an ambitious whatever, fitness, like whatever it is? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you are ambitious about and channel that ambition into, that I think is what ambitious people want to find. They want to find a partner in ambition in some way. Because when you both have a degree of ambition, to me, that is about growth mindset. That is about this desire and this belief that you have agency over your own life. You are capable of taking an action and creating a desired outcome. You want to find that in someone else. Because if you believe that and your partner does not believe they are capable of bending the world to their will, that is a fundamental value misalignment that is very challenging to overcome.
I couldn't agree more. I definitely like that's something I'm looking for sure. Yeah. I guess to wrap up, like, is there any advice that you would maybe give yourself before you launch the book or release the book? Because I feel like you've probably grown so much since then, right?
Slow down. I told this story last night, so you've heard it, but I think it's an important one. Right before the book was launched, I was working in my office on this really important thing and really focused. And my son came barging into my office. And he's like jumping around on the couches, throwing books on the ground, just terrorizing my office. And I started having this very annoyed train of thought of like, why is he doing this? This is so annoying. Doesn't he know I'm working? All of these things. And in that moment, I looked, and on my desk, I have this picture of me holding him when he was born. And it snapped me back to 5 years ago when my wife and I were in the middle of this 2-year struggle with infertility. I had prayed every single night that we would one day have a healthy child. And here I was in this moment complaining about the exact thing that I had prayed for. And it was a reminder to me of a very important fact, that sometimes in life, the things we pray for become the things that we complain about if we let them. If we don't have the presence of mind to stop, catch ourselves, and recognize that sometimes you are quite literally living out your prayers. And that every single thing you do today is something that your younger self dreamed of, and your older self would give anything to go back and do. So slow down. Appreciate these present moments. Recognize these things that your younger self dreamed of that you currently have. Stop forcing yourself to make your life conditional, your happiness conditional on some future achievement. Later is another word for never. Live in the present right today. Slow down and smell the roses a little bit more.
I love it. And drink that bottle of wine.
Drink the damn wine.
Drink the damn wine. Oh, this was such a good conversation, Sahil. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it so much. Where can everyone find you? You can find me at Sahil Bloom on any of these platforms. You can find the book on Amazon or anywhere books are sold. And send me a message, send me a DM, send me an email. I love hearing from people. Amazing.